and the City of Cottonwood proudly present Inside Cottonwood, an inside look at the decisions and issues of the City of Cottonwood. Brought to you by Arizona Smile Designers and Cliff Castle Casino. Here's Cottonwood City Manager Doug Bartosh.
Hello, welcome to Inside Cottonwood. I'm your host, Doug Bartosh, also your city manager. And I have with me today Kyla Allen, who wears many hats in the community, but is here today as the president of the Humane Society Board. Correct. And also Sierra Nablina, who is the executive director of the Humane Society. And I wanted to get them in here today because there's really a lot of positive changes going on at the Humane Society. And with those changes, you really need a lot of support. So, Kyla, give us an idea of what's going on. I know you got new board members and obviously a new executive director.
Absolutely. As of about August, we've got a whole new board now of 7 members. It used to be 4 members. We increased the size to 7. We hired interim executive director. However, we are also going through a hiring process for a permanent director, of which Sierra will compete. She's doing an amazing job in the last 6 weeks. We need to get out there in the populace and get some fundraising going on. But if you haven't been by the shelter, you really need to go by there. There's some really amazing things going on.
So now, who is on the board? I mean, you're the president.
I'm the president. I'll go through the members real quickly. The vice president is Sandy Troutman. The treasurer is Ellen Yates. The secretary is Val Hudson. Then we have 3 other board members. Dr. Dawn Hunsberger, she was the previous president, and she's remained on as a director. Amazing gal. She does so much volunteer work for us. We also have Renee George is a new director, and then also Grace Lar. Yes. Did I get that right? Grace Lar, who also happens to be the owner of Taco Bell.
Oh, that's
a great businesswoman.
So, I mean, as is typical of any nonprofit board, these are all volunteer positions, and you know, so they don't get paid, and they end up doing a lot of work, not only in terms of supporting the center, but also trying to raise donations to help the center out as well.
That is correct. There's an amazing amount of work that goes on, and before I became a member, I did not realize the amount of work that these individuals do. And it's on a daily basis. It's not once a month meeting. They really, the hands are in the pie. They're out at donation activities or public events on a regular basis. So it really is a full-time job, and everybody there is incredible about pitching in. So one of the more upcoming events is at, what have we got coming up at Pet Kingdom here locally in Cottonwood. Mm-hmm. And there'll be a lot of volunteers out there with animals. It's an adoption event, and it's kind of a mini Petapalooza. Normally we have a big Petapalooza, but it's mini this year because the Petapalooza is being moved to the beginning of next year. But the public usually has it now, and we didn't want to disappoint them. So we do have that event going on this Saturday.
Yeah, in fact, I've heard that advertised here on Yavapai Broadcasting. So I know you've done some fundraising here. I went to one last week that was really successful. Talk about what you're trying to do in terms of fundraising right now.
What we're trying to do, I think a lot of individuals know that they don't know that the Humane Society, we've got this beautiful new building, and I think that gives the impression that the Humane Society is extremely solvent, and that's not so. We need to raise funds almost constantly in order to do the operations of the facility. So last weekend we had something called a Wet Nose Wednesday, where it was an adoption event, fundraising event at the Rendezvous in Old Town, also known as Rendezvous or Riot. Had an incredible turnout by the community. We were so pleased. And through that fundraising event, we had silent auctions, and we had raffles. We also had a dog adopted, which is just amazing. And at the end of that event, we had donated to us well over $4,000. We were blown away, Sierra and I. Go ahead if you want to say something about that.
It was really amazing, the turnout of the community, and we really, really appreciate the support of the community. And to Julie Shoup.
Julie Shoup, she's the gal that put it all together.
And Julie Shoup's the one that put it all together, so we really, really appreciate her efforts and the other people that assisted her around the event.
Lisa Pender, the owner of the Riot, she was marvelous.
Yes, she is.
So, and I understand you raised $4,400
Yes.
for that event. And what are some of the other donations you've got here recently? I know Kyla's been telling me about those.
I'll speak a little bit, and I'm going to let Sierra, because this was her bailiwick. She really worked hard on this. The center needs dog food all the time. We need dog food, cat food, puppy food, kitten food, and that's probably one of our biggest needs. And so Sierra was out there really beating the bushes, trying to get the big vendors to go ahead and give us something or give us a discount. And unfortunately, the Verde Valley Humane Society, whether it's past history or whatever, we're kind of at the bottom of everybody's list. Well, Sierra got a hold of Bee in Sedona, who's been an amazing mentor. Yes. To Sierra, and I'm going to let you pick it up from there.
That's great. Very first thing I did when I came into this position is I started asking questions, because I'm brand new to the area. Coming from Denver, Colorado, and working with Denver Dumb Friends League is where I bring a lot of my experience into this position. And the very first thing I did is I said, so we're a humane society. Is there any other humane societies in the area? And they said, yes, there's Sedona, then there's Yavapai, and then there's something over in Flagstaff. And I went, wow, are we all speaking to each other? What do you mean? And I went, picked up the phone, and I called Bee at the Sedona Humane Society, and I said, you don't know me, but I'm new director, and we just hit it off. And she has been an amazing mentor to me. Right. I am there soaking up as much as I possibly can from that organization. And so anytime I run up against any kind of roadblocks, I ask for her opinion and get her advice, her and Gary, the manager there. And also the board of directors, John Cannon, has been extremely involved in helping us with our facilities and the challenges that we have there, being in between a new building and an old building, because we're not completely out of the old building yet. Mm-hmm. So she mentioned, give a phone call to Purina. There's things called shelter programs for food. And so where different things like Purina or I'm Science Diet or Buffalo Blue, different programs like that as far as food goes, you can contact the people and ask them, would you set up a shelter program? And I've been beating the ground with that pretty heavily, and I'm really, really close to hopefully having something set up for us permanently. Good. But I kept bugging Purina until I finally got a phone call back from Purina last week. It's 5,000 pounds of dog food was donated to our shelter, and that was just a huge win for us.
5,000 pounds sounds like a lot. How long does that last, though?
5,000 pounds is probably only going to last us about 6 months.
Yeah. So there's that continual need for donations.
Sure is.
And I know one other thing that was real important to you was trying to find a way to get the dogs spayed or neutered. And absolutely. And I think
another thing that I went to Bee at Sedona with, actually it was one of the very first conversations that we had. I went to meet her, and I had hoped at the very minimum I would just follow her around like a little puppy dog and take notes, but they were so gracious and so open-armed when I came there to take me in and give me, they have surpassed any expectation that I have had. And I told her that the first thing I needed to go to work on, besides forging a relationship with the other humane societies, was we needed to spay and neuter our animals, because when somebody comes in and they see an animal, they want to take that animal home. And it's really can be a little upsetting to people. They're so excited, they want to take it home, everything's great, and they can't because it hasn't been spayed or neutered. And so I went to work on all the vaccinations, doing everything that we need to actually have the animals ready. And I went to Bee with my main concern, and together we found a donor that will actually spay and neuter all of our animals ongoingly at our shelter. That's just a huge, huge win for us.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Let's go ahead and take our first break, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the issue of spay neutering, and which is an important issue, and kind of educate our audience on that. So come back and join us.
Meet the team at Arizona Smile Designers, offering complete comprehensive, restorative, and aesthetic dentistry. Dr. Vergara and Dr. Lord specialize in dental health, implants, and cosmetic dental procedures. Expert staff and state-of-the-art equipment bring forth the most from your smile. Dr. Ripplinger conveniently comes to Arizona Smile Designers for oral surgery and complicated procedures. Visit Arizona Smile Designers at 350 South Willard in Cottonwood. Insurance and new patients are welcome. Call 634-8610.
Arms are facing down. Bend that front knee. Tuck the tailbone. Sink the shoulders. Look over that left middle finger. Inhale here, ladies. Exhale. Open the arm. Deeper, deeper. There we go. Okay, now focus. And find that special place that brings you joy.
Welcome back to Inside Cottonwood. I'm your host, Doug Bartosh, and I'm here with Kyla Allen, who's the president of the Humane Society, Verde Valley Humane Society, and Sierra Neblina, who is the executive director of the Humane Society here in Cottonwood. And actually the executive director of what we know is kind of the animal shelter. I guess that's what we call it. But before we left, we were talking about spay and neutering. And, you know, this is, I think, a real important issue for me, because I get the reports from the, and I don't know if Kyla's told you this, but we're supposed to get reports once a month about the animals and actually how many are brought in, and unfortunately how many are euthanized. And, you know, I actually sat down one day and added up all the numbers, and the numbers were pretty, I think, shocking in terms of the number of animals that we're putting down. And obviously your program of spay and neutering animals before they're adopted is a great way to start that. But one of the things the city has talked about is a mandatory spay and neuter for animals out there, because the last thing that we want to have to do is put an animal down.
That's exactly right.
And so I know you guys are working on that, and from a shelter perspective, I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and the importance of that issue.
I would love to. It's just that the normal average person doesn't understand what we see on our end. And I wanted to just first say something about the reports. I think that that's a really great idea. We doubt on transparency at the shelter now, at the Adopt for Life Center for Animals is what we like to refer to ourselves for.
Right.
Is anybody can come at any time with an open door policy. They can ask for any of our records. We will not have any problem sharing any information with anybody that'd like to come in and speak to us. So I'm glad that we do weekly reports to the city. It's very important. And on the issue of spaying and neutering, I think if people got to witness almost on a weekly basis what I have to make the decision for, I think it would change their mind about spaying and neutering. When we get kittens and puppies that are struggling for their life, that are diseased and infected and in pain and suffering because they're turned out to the wild and there's no spay-neuter program that's enforced here in the county, and the suffering that I have to deal with. We got a county officer brought into us about 30 cats one day to a woman who thought she was doing a good thing by feeding out her back door. What she was doing was encouraging the population, and I will be quite frank, there are some days I go home and cry myself to sleep because of what I see through the shelter. And if I knew that I would be faced with this type of decision from day to day, you know, I wish somebody could walk just a couple weeks in my shoes with what I see and deal with there at the shelter. And out of those 30 animals, cats that were brought in that day, only one has survived up to this point. We tried to keep 6 kittens, but we had to euthanize the rest of them because of the disease and the shape that they were in. There just wouldn't be any way to save them. One of the things that I've changed since I've come on as the executive director at the Humane Society is I've stopped automatic euthanizations for stray cats. Mm-hmm. Because in today's day and age in our economy, people are turning out their animals, which is another problem that we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. And so they're not necessarily stray or feral. So we try to rehabilitate the animals that come into us that are healthy enough to do so. Again, another reason why we need the donations and the support from the community. But back to the spaying and neutering, the animals suffer for it, and that's the bottom line. And we want to stay away from, we're not talking about the mandatory spaying and neutering for any kind of breeders. They will be exempt from this type of a conversation. It's the everyday average human being, the people in the community that have animals, that either get them from friends when they have litters or go someplace else that they don't necessarily require spaying and neutering. It's a really, really good thing to do. If you want to start to, and I invite anybody, if they like to come down and shadow me whenever I get these animals in from the city or from the county that I have to look at and determine, can I save this animal or not? I sure would love to be able to do something like that sometime, maybe even have a film crew follow me around and really get what it's like to have to face this day in and day out when they come into my shelter. In fact, this is something that I wanted to bring up for future plans is Denver Dumb Friends League. People couldn't understand why we were wanting to implement a statewide mandatory spay and neuter, which we actually did accomplish after a couple of years. One of the ways we were able to do that is we had a film crew follow us around and go into the shelters and see what we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And then the average person was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. I don't want those animals to suffer that way. And so it's just such a good idea to spay and neuter your animal. And I understand that in today's day and age, it's hard. You might be challenged financially, but Sedona has a low-cost spay and neuter program. There's the Morning Star. There's Jerome. There's a lot of programs out there that will help you get your animal spayed and neutered for low to zero cost to you. You just need to reach out to the community, come in and speak to us, and we'll help you get your animal spayed and neutered. I promise we will.
And that is a big piece of it, I think, is having an affordable spay-neuter program. But and on the other hand, I think people have to be educated that having pets is a responsibility, that it's not just, hey, they're nice to play with and, you know, and those kind of things. You got to feed them, you got to, you know, get them attended by a vet, a professional, you know, you got to get them spayed, neutered. You got to really take care of them.
And there's a training aspect to it also. Yeah. Some people think that even with cats that there's not a training aspect to it, or they think that they can just get a dog and not put any kind of effort into the training or into the handling of the animal. And now that there's a lot of programs, I know a lot of people in the area that are good trainers. PetSmart have come in and they've got a real low-cost program for training your animals from puppyhood all the way through adulthood and senior training. So there's no reason why we don't. We've got the resources that we need here in the valley to accommodate what we need for all of our animals. We just need people to come in and get involved with us, to reach out and let us know when they need help, and from feeding their animals to spaying their animals to training their animals.
I think one of the important things is people don't understand if they have a cat and it has kittens, the exponential increase of that. You know, they give away their kitten without thought that that's going to have 8 or 10 kittens, that's going to have 8 or 10 kittens. Pretty soon you have this huge population. And also I just learned yesterday or the day before that you can actually spay and neuter animals much younger. You don't have to wait until they're 6 months old anymore. You can do it much younger. And so I know a lot of people also think they want to give that miracle of birth thing to their children. We have so many breeders around here, so many farms, that would be absolutely wonderful to say, bring your kids over, let's see this. It's not necessary to do that in your own home and then not take the responsibility of what's going to happen with those kittens after they're born and you've experienced that. Just giving them away is going to create more population problem.
It's such a draw to be able to, you know, the kitten, the baby kitten and the puppy is such a fun thing to deal with for the first few weeks, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, there's this responsibility of this animal, and then people are scrambling around to get rid of them and without the forethought of spaying and neutering. I know that there's a stigma with humane societies or shelters, but I just want the public to know that I'm going to work with you. You bring your animal into me, even if they're too young. I'll take your mother cat, I'll take your mother dog, I'll give your mother dog back to you afterwards. There is a very humane treatment of animals at our facility now. You can trust us, and you can come in and start working with us. We need to work with the community.
Well, and you've certainly given me some ideas for some future shows, but let's go ahead and take our next break and come back and join us, because I think this is an important topic for our community.
Welcome to Happy House, #1 in customer service. There's simply no better place to be.
Meet the team at Arizona Smile Designers, offering complete comprehensive, restorative, and aesthetic dentistry. Dr. Vergara and Dr. Lord specialize in dental health, implants, and cosmetic dental procedures. Expert staff and state-of-the-art equipment bring forth the most from your smile. Dr. Ripplinger conveniently comes to Arizona Smile Designers for oral surgery and complicated procedures. Visit Arizona Smile Designers at 350 South Willard in Cottonwood. Insurance and new patients are welcome. Call 634-8610.
Welcome back to Inside Cottonwood. I'm your host, Doug Bartosh, here with Kyla Allen, who's the president of the Verde Valley Humane Society Board, and also Sierra Neblina, who is the executive director of the Humane Society. What did you call it?
Adopt for Life Center for Animals.
Which is great, because I think ultimately that's our goal, is to try and get all these animals adopted that can be adopted, so we don't have to put them down, because as you indicated, I just can't imagine making that decision. It's got to be a tough decision to make. And so we were talking about the spay-neuter law, and we know that's, the city's going to bring that back again, and we think it's important for the animals first and foremost, and important for our community to have that. The other thing I wanted to talk about was you talked a little bit about the new building, and I don't know who's doing this, but I know you're making a lot of changes up there. The city's trying to help you in terms of kind of improving your facility up there, but you've also had some great successes. Kyla was telling me about the adoption rate now, and kind of getting things on track. Talk a little bit about the successes you've had up there so far.
Would love to. Within the first 3 weeks, we doubled the adoption rate, and we are well on our way to tripling the adoption rate. With the help of the Sedona Humane Society and Gary and the other Morning Star, and there's another alliance I'm starting to forge, which is Second Chance up in Flagstaff. Kevin, the executive director, we're all starting to come together and work together very powerfully for the benefit of the animals. A lot of programs that are rolled out that people don't know about, a lot of things happening in the background, but the adoption rate is the success of that. That 5,000 pounds of food is the success of that, and very shortly the shelter program food that I'm going to roll out will be the success of that, and we just keep hitting these mile marks that are very, very important for us. So
we do have a new website. It was just launched today.
Right.
It's adoptforlifecenterforanimals.org. I know it's a mouthful. We haven't linked the old website to the new website yet. What we'll do is we'll link it so you can go from, if you type in VVHS, it'll shoot you to the new website. But if you want to look up adoptforlifecenterforanimals.org, you'll get to our new site.
Okay, so we talked about donations and spay and neuter. What are some of the biggest needs that the Humane Society has right now?
Oh, financial.
First and foremost is financial help. We have 2 buildings that we're operating out of right now, and that is electrical, that is air conditioning, that is water, that is all of it. And so until we can finish the construction on the new building, we get all of our animals from the old building to the new building. We're operating out of one building. It will be a lot better for us. But the first and foremost are financial donations. It doesn't matter if you give us $1. It doesn't matter if you get us $5. Anything will help towards the operation, the overhead costs of keeping those buildings running and the animals in it. Second of all is the food, and we're working on doing that. And we've got a lot of cats, we've got a lot of kittens, we get a lot of young kittens in there, and we have to have formula. So we've got wish lists up around the community, and it will be on our website. We're going to be having a newsletter, we're going to be doing mailings.
We're gonna, as she says, one of the needs is cat and kitten food, and what we try to do is we try to keep it to the same brand. Right now we're using Purina.
Purina.
So we request people, they can bring in anything, but what we really like is Purina because that keeps them from having tummy problems when you change foods. And kitten food we can really use right now. We go through that pretty quickly.
And what we're using for the kitten food also is the Purina, but we also have very, very young kittens. And Friskies, the little can of Friskies that for the kittens only, the very young kittens, is what we go through pretty fast. Kitten formula, and if you're not sure what kind, you can always call us and ask us what type that we're using for kitten formula. But cat litter, cat litter, cat litter. I cannot say enough about cat litter. And it really doesn't matter what kind of cat litter. We really would like it, or what brand I should say. The kind needs to be clumping cat litter.
Okay, that's great. How about volunteers?
Oh boy, that's the next big thing that we need is volunteers. Volunteers to help us with a myriad of things. There's a lot of different programs I'm attempting to roll out. I just don't have the manpower to do. We're attempting to bring open the lines of communication between ourselves and the community, between ourselves and even the volunteers that we have. And there's a lot of projects to do. If you can't work with the animals in the facility, you could come and answer phones. You could come and clean our bathrooms, sweep our floors. You could come and help us work on a lot of the organizational tasks that we still have a very daunting task in front of us with a lot of things we want to do around both of the buildings. So even if it's something you can't lift, if you could sit and file for us, if you could help us draw on dry erase boards, different things like that would be really, really great. But we are also still really, really needing dog walkers. We need dog walkers for the afternoons. So one of the things that I did is I changed the way the animals are handled, that it's more humane and it's done in a more sanitary way. And if you go in and talk to some of our long-term volunteers, they will tell you the extreme difference in the attitude of the animals. There's a thing called cage rage. If an animal isn't handled properly, it ruins the animal because neither you or I or them want to be locked behind bars for very long, no matter what the look. If it looks good or if it doesn't look good, you're still behind bars, you're still confined, you're still not able to be the cat or dog that you are. And so we got rotation programs, we got different ways that we handle the animals now that cut down on the cage rage so that we can have more adoptable animals and happier and healthier animals. And so cat socializers are another thing. And let me say one more thing about the dogs. If you can't come and walk the dogs because you're not able to, you can come and actually take them behind a fenced area that we have and let them run around and supervise them. So that's a really great way to also help with the dogs if you can't do it. But in the afternoon, we've got dog walkers coming at 8 a.m. And then we need some dog walkers or dog socializers in the afternoon about 3 o'clock, also between 2 and 3, so that we can get them ready for the evening time.
You know, that's really great. And I guess, you know, we're getting close to the end of our time. If you had one piece of advice or maybe a couple pieces of advice for our animal owners out there, predominantly, I don't know if you guys take, you know, pigs, sheep.
We're working on that. Not yet, but we're working on it.
Okay, you may end up having to take chickens here pretty soon. But if there was advice that you would give pet owners out there, what would it be?
Spend time with your animals. Pay attention to them. Give them as much love as you possibly can.
You know, I watch Dog Whisper a lot. Are you a fan of Dog Whisper?
I am.
But I mean, that's kind of the message he gives.
Yes, be with them.
Is, you know, remember that they are animals and that, you know, kind of you've got to be the alpha male and
that's what they need. They like that. They like to know where they stand.
But the key is to get them out, walk them, exercise them. They need that kind of kind of release, I guess, just like humans do.
Absolutely.
So, well, it was great having you both here, and hopefully we can have you back several more times to do some education on, you know, being a pet owner, because I think it's probably just like having a kid. You don't necessarily always get instructed on it, and you learn by you know, mistake and error. So we'll definitely try and get you back. Thanks for joining us on Inside Cottonwood, and come back and join us again.